Checkpoints in New York City, illegal mansion parties in LA, and the biggest coronavirus outbreak in the world in between. Here's what you need to know. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need2Know podcast for when. I have no idea what day it is, Carlo. Is it Thursday? I'm not
Thursday.
even joking. It's Thursday, right? Okay, for Thursday, August 6th, I am Jill Wagner with Carlo Versano. Carlo, I'm going on, I think, day 2 of no power at my house, no AC.
Oh God.
Kind of losing my
Well,
mind.
first of all, you guys are all safe, right? There were no
Knock on wood,
no
yes.
issues. Yeah. Okay, good. Well, that's good. That's all we can hope for this year. But I'm glad to see you. I'm glad to hear you. We held down the fort without you yesterday. But I saw some of the pictures that you sent of just like your street with those trees down. It's like when it rains, it pours, right?
It's
Literally.
really crazy. And we have just no power, but we're in our home and we didn't have to evacuate or anything. I mean, it's brutally hot. I mean, I slept last night in the basement on one of my daughter's play mats and a pillow and a blanket. I didn't know if I was going to get up and be able to walk this morning because I'm not so young anymore. But I'm kind of understanding now. Just say this is a terrible hurricane season and people have to evacuate in the middle of a pandemic. You kind of like can only handle so many things at once. And even I, who am so careful about coronavirus, like I kind of forgot my mask this morning and had to go back and get it. There's too many things that I'm worried about right now.
No, there's a real sense of fatigue, right? Like you can only, yeah, exactly. Well said.
Okay, let's get to some news here. Chicago public schools are going to be starting the year all virtual. So this leaves New York as the last major urban public school district in the U.S. planning for in-person classes. New York City, which is going on 4 days in a row with no virus deaths, is setting up checkpoints now at bridges and tunnels to remind people who are coming from hotspots that they need to self-quarantine or face hefty fines.
So, first of all, I thought we've said it before, but New York City is an incredible success story right now in just how we've beaten this virus back. The positivity rates on the tests are continuing to be 1% or lower. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, as you alluded to earlier, the city says it's going to have to start it's going to start going to the DPW and turning off the water and power at some of these big houses and mansions in places like Calabasas and the Hollywood Hills, which are continuing to be the scenes of these huge house parties with all the bars and clubs and restaurants closed. I guess all of like the rich LA kids are now just flocking to these big parties, and there's these pictures of them. It's like it's absolutely wild. But also Dr. Fauci admitting on CNN last night what everyone else pretty much knows at this point, except for perhaps his boss, which is the United States now has the worst outbreak in the world, any country, big or small, rich or poor. And just to give you a sense of where we are, there were 10 times the number of people who died in that blast in Beirut the other day, died yesterday just of COVID-19 in the United States. That's one person every 80 seconds.
It is incredible, and we're not done with it. Like, we're still in the thick of it. Speaking of that blast, though, we now know a little bit more about what led to those scenes of absolute destruction across one of the most beautiful cities in the Middle East. 6 years ago, a leaky Russian cargo ship carrying more than 2,000 tons of ammonium nitrate made a pit stop in Beirut on its way to Africa. The ship became caught in a diplomatic tiff, and it was abandoned by its owner, at which point its highly combustible cargo was transferred to a dockside warehouse where it remained until this week. The explosion of that cargo on Tuesday killed more than 130 people and destroyed large parts of the downtown waterfront. The before and after pictures are absolutely incredible, Carlo.
I was going to say, like, yeah, you may not be completely read in on the story just if you haven't had power over the last 24 hours and been able to just see the images on television and online. But they are truly remarkable and really enraging. I mean, this is going to end up being a story about chronic negligence, right, incompetence on the part of the government there, on the part of these officials who knew of the danger of storing, thousands of tons of this highly combustible, fertilizer ingredient, essentially just like out in the open in this warehouse next to the port rather, which the port being their like economic lifeline. And again, I said this yesterday, but Lebanon was facing an economic disaster and crisis even before any of this. They're dealing with runaway inflation. There's been runs on the banks there. You can't even get cash out of the ATMs right now. If any good comes of this, hopefully all you can ask for is that it'll help. It'll help them sweep the corrupt power class out of power, because this is sadly going to end up being a story, I think, about corruption and negligence.
Switching gears, let's just talk about what's going on here in the U.S. in terms of the political season. I want to do a little campaign 2020 wrap because there have been a lot of developments in just the past couple of days. So Joe Biden is not going to Milwaukee to accept the DNC nomination, saying that he wants to set a good public health example. President Trump, meanwhile, is considering making his official re-election pitch from the White House lawn, having canceled most of the convention activities that were supposed to happen in Florida. So this means that for the first time, the conventions will not feature those trademark arena speeches from the candidates with all of the balloons and whatnot. What a year.
Yeah, I mean I'm sure you've covered these conventions as I have in the past, and the big candidate speech on the last night is sort of like the crescendo. So we're going to have those speeches. They're just going to be remote. All these things are going to be virtual. It's going to be weird. It's going to probably be pretty boring too. I mean, some of these conventions are boring even to begin with. So I don't know how it's going to be without any like people cheering and milling about. It is probably technically illegal for President Trump to accept the nomination and do the big speech from the White House. I think that is a violation of the Hatch Act, if we're even keeping track anymore. I don't think we are. But yeah, those conventions later this month, so we'll get to see these guys. And then at that point is really when the election kicks off, right?
Yeah, and meanwhile, Biden's choice for VP reportedly down to two people, Susan Rice and Kamala Harris. He is expected to make this announcement any day. His campaign just made the biggest ad buy ever for a presidential candidate, $280 million across TV and digital through the fall. I guess that's maybe good news for TV stations and like media outlets who are desperate for some money.
That's a good point, yeah. Absolutely, right, because the ad, I didn't even think about that, but the ad shortfall this year has been absolutely brutal. But so 280 million, that's compared to the 147 million the Trump campaign has spent has reserved to spend. Those numbers can always change, of course, but it is notable. It's a lot of money. On the Veepstakes, Susan Rice, man, that would be a bad pick. That's not just my opinion either, but I just think that would be a pick that the Trump campaign would absolutely love, right? I mean, here's a deep state apparatchik from the Obama years who's never held elected office. It just seems like right up their alley. Like, get ready to hear the word Benghazi every day until the election, if she's the vice president. And I'm not making any sort of judgment about her abilities or anything like that. I'm sure she's very smart and she seems very capable. But, politically, Biden needs a do no harm pick. And Susan Rice is absolutely not that.
Meanwhile, Biden was asked about, those cognitive tests. And I
saw that yesterday.
And he said he never, so he's saying he never took one and really brushed it off. Like he said to the interviewer, it would be like if I asked if you had to do a cocaine test before this, it was like, what? But didn't
what does that even mean?
I think this whole issue is a little crazy, but didn't he already say he takes cognitive tests all the time? Didn't that happen?
What he said was he's tested all the time, meaning like he's been in, positions where he's been like, tested. I don't think he actually meant like he's given the cotton, the draw a clock test. Yeah.
You mean
But I mean, Jill, the fact
TV. What is it?
TV,
what is that famous
person?
Oh yeah.
Camera TV. Can you pick out the elephant? Yeah. I mean, the fact that we're even talking about this is just unbelievable.
But the truth is, I don't know. I mean, both President Trump and Joe Biden. I mean, Joe Biden would be the oldest president elected, right? If he were to win.
Yeah.
I don't think it's crazy for us to be talking about You know, I don't think
No,
it's a totally crazy discussion for us to be having.
no,
And
no.
I
I
think the
guess
vice presidential pick on both sides is even more important when you think about the age of both of these
absolutely.
guys.
No question about that. What I guess what I mean is that it's just crazy that we're in a place now. I think that, of course, when you have these two presidential candidates who are old and who are prone to saying things that don't either make sense or are untrue, I think, talking about cognitive ability is totally fine. I'm just saying, like, where are we that, this is what we've come to. Just, two guys in their upper 70s. All I'll say, Jill, is the debates are going to be wow. I don't
Are
even
they
know.
even
They're gonna,
doing them?
yeah, though I think so. That's the plan, at least. Who knows?
Must see TV. At a time when we don't have much to watch, so.
Exactly.
Okay, meanwhile, Facebook has launched Reels. It is a video sharing platform meant to take on TikTok. Reels lives within Instagram, giving it immediate exposure to the hundreds of millions of people who use that app every day. Facebook says Reels is going to focus on creators rather than just everyday users.
This is if you can't beat them, copy them, right? This is sort of the Facebook business model, and they don't even hide that. I mean, they've said in the past, like, that's the whole sort of point. They have this huge user base. So if there's something else, if there's like a younger startup that's, getting a lot of users, they try and copy them and they present that to their huge user base and hope that it takes off, like it did with Instagram or with Instagram Stories, which was a basically direct carbon copy of Snapchat. Imagine if TikTok had actually been banned the other day when President Trump said he was going to ban it, and then Facebook comes out a couple days later with a TikTok clone. I mean, that would have been probably ripe for conspiracy theories. But it looks like Facebook is going to go head to head with Microsoft, assuming that this deal for TikTok goes through. I still don't really get why Microsoft would want anything to do with this space. It's just it seems like such a headache. Social media, just with the misinformation and the abuse and the bullying. Like, I mean, I guess these things make a lot of money, but I wouldn't want anything to do with it.
Well, they already have LinkedIn, which is social media,
Yeah,
right? I mean, but I guess it's
yeah,
different.
kind of. People aren't really getting bullied like on LinkedIn. I don't think.
You
At
didn't do
least.
well. I used to joke with LinkedIn. It was the skills portion of LinkedIn, I think, is insane. I used to get endorsed for ENPS, which is a skill I don't even know if I put down. I'm not even good at ENPS. Okay, ENPS for
Right.
people who don't know is just the
It's like
system
the
is where we have our
software
rundowns and stuff. And I'm like,
Yeah.
this is just so stupid that people are even doing this. Like, it just made me feel like the whole thing wasn't credible. I don't know. Like,
Jill,
because if
would say
I was getting
half.
endorsed for that, which I'm not even proficient in, I'm wondering, can I take, if somebody's getting endorsed for a different skill, is that legit?
Well, I mean, I would half of the people that am connected to on LinkedIn, I don't think I've ever met in my life. I mean,
I
right?
just make sure someone else I know is linked to them. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to,
Right.
this isn't horrible.
Oh
I'm
God.
with you. I know. I don't know. Microsoft, though, most analysts that I've been talking to on Cheddar are saying that it's a pretty good move for Microsoft. And there's such goodwill. People who use TikTok love it. It's one of these platforms. It's like entertainment. Netflix has cited it as its biggest competition. They were asked about whether like Peacock or Disney Plus, what are they most worried about? And they mentioned TikTok because they're basically saying, they're competing for whatever is taking up people's time. So I also was kind of scratching my head as to why Microsoft would want to get involved with this, but the more people that I speak with who are a lot smarter than I am seem to think it's a great idea.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean,
But
maybe it just seems like I had it.
one thing that they say, though, is that this whole issue about your data, like if they're not getting data back the millions of people who are already on TikTok, kiss your data goodbye. It's more
Right.
like they're going to be protecting new users' data, in theory.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
like
I mean,
there's no way, like the cat's out of the bag. Like there's no way to get like if you're on TikTok, the whole concern is that China would have access to this personal information, and there's been a
Right.
bunch of stories about that. And I don't know, the most experts say like that information you can't get
The
back
cat's
from
out of
whatever
yeah, well, the
server
cat's
it's
out of
in.
the bag, right? And I think I may have been a little flippant lately in saying like, TikTok, this is not like the biggest deal in the world, but it is a big deal. Using having all of your data go to a company that's stored in servers in China. I mean, there was some. I read something. I don't use TikTok, so I don't even really know what this thing is, other than it's this popular video thing. But there was one of these TikTok challenges the other day where you were supposed to put your eye up to the camera and move it around. It's like, I mean, that feels like it's out of a dystopian book or something. Like, are they just like taking your eye scan at this point? Like, they already have your facial characteristics. I don't know. I guess I shouldn't say that because I don't have anything to back it up, but it just seemed like a little bit on the nose.
Okay, something new to watch on live TV if you're already getting sick of basketball, baseball, and hockey. 91 of the top 100 golfers in the world tee off today at the PGA Championship in San Francisco, 3 months after it was postponed because of coronavirus. It is the first golf major of the year. It will be played without fans. Carlo, briefly, since not everyone cares about pro golf, what are the storylines to watch here?
Yeah, so just like you said, very briefly, Brooks Koepka looking to win his third straight PGA Championship. That's sort of like the big storyline. Rory McIlroy, who is playing some of the best golf of his life before the pandemic. It's going to be interesting to see, where he stands, if he's still as hot as he was. And Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods will be playing. He's had a bad back this whole year, so it'll be interesting to see if his back holds up. It's also just going to be interesting to see how the lack of fans plays into it too. When you think about golf, there's no defense, right? The entire game is played essentially in your head. It's why the best players like Tiger are so calm and focused, right? Nothing gets to them. The no fans and the no crowds won't matter to them, but it could matter for like the younger guys or the less experienced guys who aren't used to playing, without these big crowds following them on the greens and cheering for them and whatnot. So, we've seen the crowd noise issue with baseball and basketball having no fans in the stands. It'll be interesting to see with golf. And then the real question where it'll really be interesting to see is football, right? Because football
Yeah.
is the one sport where it really matters how loud the audience is.
In golf, it's also the fans line the hole. So when you are
Yeah.
teeing off, it's like a different visual
Yeah,
than you're
exactly. Right.
used to. Finally, I found this really interesting. Michelle Obama said on her podcast yesterday that she was suffering from, quote, low-grade depression over the various crises that are roiling the country. The former First Lady certainly not alone. In a survey last week, the Kaiser Foundation found that a majority of American adults now say that they believe this pandemic is taking a toll on their mental health. Another way to think about it, according to the National Center for Health Statistics, 1 in 12 American adults reported symptoms of an anxiety disorder at this time last year. Now it's more like 1 in 3.
Yeah, this isn't. I mean, I saw that statistic too, and it was just really remarkable. But in some ways, it's not, right? I mean, everyone's going through it right now, and I think also, by the way, both of those numbers significantly higher for people of color. I just want to make that sort of obvious point apparent. And I feel it too. The post staycation glow has worn off for me. I know that you're fed up, Jill. Just having to deal with now the power outages on top of everything else. And August is always tough, I think, but this year there's just this sense of being just pooped out, right? And I don't know if maybe I'm alone, but I have a feeling I'm not. And I think just knowing that we've got this really insane fall ahead of us with the election and the school openings and this other, the second wave that we may get, I think we just got to take care of each other, right? And have a little grace. I think that's the watchword of the year. Just remembering that next time you're frustrated or fed up, that the other person on the other side of that frustration, they're going through this too, right?
Carlo, I think that was really well said. Besides me just, I felt it last night and yesterday really I've been very stressed. I mean, I packed up everything, moved out of New York City, I'm like mourning for my old life and my old friends and my old apartment. At the same time, I'm excited to move into a new house, which is now like postponed. I don't even know until when because of the power outages. We were supposed to potentially close next week. It's a lot. And like, I'm not, and so many people have it so much worse. As I was going to bed last night, like huddled on this 1-inch thick playmat in my in-laws' basement, seeing if maybe I had power, had cell service on my phone. I was actually thinking, like, Jill, perspective. Like, your
family's
knock on
healthy,
wood, you're
right?
okay. Your daughter's sleeping in this. I went. It was a weird thing. She's in this little like pack and play thing, and I was like, oh, we're having a sleepover downstairs in the basement, and she got so excited.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? It's not so bad. I'm trying to always find the silver lining, but it's not an easy time for anybody right now.
No, that's a great way to put it, right? And one day you'll talk to your daughter about this crazy summer of 2020 that she won't even remember.
I texted my husband last night because he was upstairs. Our dog was nonstop barking because there's a couple of people with generators around us. So just the birds, he barked for like 2 hours straight. So he's upstairs trying to calm down Trestle. And I texted him, I'm like, one day, Michael, you and I will laugh about this exact moment. And I, gave
it ain't gonna be today,
heart.
and it ain't gonna be tomorrow.
One day in the future, we will have a good laugh about this. And
Here.
And that's all you could think, right? I mean, that's the only way to think about it.
You just got to get through it. Look, before we go, I have a request. I have to do a story tomorrow on Cheddar about the disparities in testing. If people getting coronavirus testing, how long that they've had to wait for their results. So I'm asking you, people listening, if you had to get a test recently, I want to hear about your experience, where it was, how long it took. Email us, Need2Know, the number 2 at cheddar.com. It'll be really helpful for this story to hear from more people.
And by the way, if anyone is out there right now and they are feeling depressed or alone or just want to bitch and moan a little, we will listen. Please email us. I'm not joking. Carlo and I love hearing from anybody. So just tell us what's going on, and if it might make you feel better.
Yeah, and send more of those dog pics, man. I love getting those.
All right, everybody. That is what you need to know for Thursday, August 6th. I got the date right this time, Carlo.
There you go. All right, we're making.
Bye, everybody.